So welcome everyone to this Panorama event. Unlocking Solutions, Panorama helps to fill the implementation gap, a virtual CBD side event.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everybody around the world. And thank you so much for joining our event today. As you may have missed what Ruchir said, my name is Trevor Sandworth and I'm the Director of IUCN's Global Protected and Conserved Area Program based in Switzerland. And IUCN is one of the partners in the PANORAMA initiative, which you're going to hear a lot more about today. So just in terms of, first of all, setting the scene, just from a housekeeping point of view, I would like to suggest that you enter into the chat your name and where you're from, which will enable us to follow up with you and make sure that you get further information about Panorama. But also, if you have a question, either to what somebody says, or you have a comment to make and you'd like to maybe have that comment relayed to the panel later on, please put that in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You'll see Q&A and chat, and feel free to use both of those channels. Today we have a program that will last about 90 minutes. We're going to have opening remarks from the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity and from the Federal Ministry of Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety from Germany. We'll then go into a description of Panorama and a short video. And then the main event, if you like, is that we are going to go to two different parts of the world to look at solutions that have been constructed and described using the Panorama technology. We'll spend some time on that. And then we'll reconvene with the panel to discuss some of what we've heard from the presentations and what this means really for the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework, which is still to be agreed by the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. So once again, if you've just joined, please write your name and where you're from in the chat, and we'll be able to get back to you. So what I'd like to do now is to very warmly welcome Mr. Iri Tamale, who is with the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity based in Canada. He is actually the head of the Capacity Building and Knowledge Management Unit of the CBD. And that has been a really important topic of discussion as part of the Global Biodiversity Framework preparation, because it's only implementation that is going to achieve goals. So I'm going to ask Iri to help put us in context. We would normally be in Montreal and having a lunch with you, but this will have to do. Welcome, Iri.
Thank you very much, Trevor, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I would like to welcome you as well to this event on behalf of the Executive Secretary of the CBD. We are excited, of course, to have partners we are working with, including Panorama, in trying to find ways of addressing the implementation challenges that we have at the global level in terms of fulfilling our commitments for biodiversity. As you know, the fifth Global Biodiversity Outlook, GBO5, which was released last year, regrettably noted that we did not succeed in achieving what we set out to do. All the targets that we set out, all the 20 targets were actually not met as we had anticipated. So this failure, of course, is disheartening, and it's because of a number of factors. Some of the factors have to do with the inadequate means of implementation, including limited capacities, limited financial and technical resources, limited knowledge, and other limitations. So, which means as we get into the new, the post-2020 period, we need to think about how we are going to address these challenges that cause this failure. And of course, it can't be business as usual. Otherwise, at the mark of 2030, we'll be again lamenting that we've not succeeded. So we need to bring about real change in the way we do things, in the way we do capacity development, in the way we do knowledge management, in the way we do technical and scientific cooperation, so that this time around we can perhaps get it right. And as you all are aware, we've developed for capacity development, we've developed a long-term strategic framework for capacity development, which was discussed at the concluded the formal meeting of the SBI. This framework aims to help governments and non-government actors to achieve more coherence, efficiency, and effectiveness in their capacity development efforts, and to ensure a more coordinated approach, which hopefully will create more opportunities for cooperation and synergy, and be able to achieve more sustainable impact at the global and at the national level. We certainly need strong capacities developed at all levels in order to succeed in this endeavor. And without these changes, new solutions, our achievements might again be short-lived and not that impactful in the long run. So we need to think hard, and this event gives us one of the opportunities to start brainstorming and thinking on how can we do things separately, differently from how we've done it in the past. We must admit that our current approaches to capacity development and to knowledge management remain fragmented and not founded on rigorous evidence on assessment of the needs and the challenges that countries have. So we need to find ways of doing grounding our efforts on proper information on what's happening on the ground, collecting case studies and ongoing solutions from the ground, and learning from those efforts that are ongoing, which PANORAMA has been trying to do. And we need to step up these efforts so that we can collect all these lessons and utilize them. And I would like to thank PANORAMA for putting together this event. We look forward to working with you and with all the partners to ensure that we have effective delivery of capacity development, technical and scientific cooperation, and knowledge management in support of the Post-2020 framework. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Eri. And I just remark that we have been very happy to have had your encouragement to keep going because of the difficult times that we're living in, but also because of your firm commitment that actually the job needs to be done. We don't have to wait to get started. And so we didn't want to, we were just looking for the right time to start opening up these possibilities and to grow this partnership. So now I'd like to invite Mrs. Elke Steinmetz from the German Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation, and Nuclear Safety to say a few words. Elke.
Thank you very much, Trevor, and thank you, Eri, also for your introductory remarks. And a warm hello to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm very pleased and happy to be with you today here in this important event on filling the implementation gap, a topic which is very, very close to my heart since many years. Yes, please let me introduce myself to you. I'm head of the Unit for International Cooperation on Biological Diversity within the BMU, which is the German Federal Ministry for the Environment. And I'm co-heading this unit together with Inka Gnitke, who many of you will know as the German CBD focal point. Inka would have loved to be with you today, but she's caught in the IPBES plenary. Yeah, it's great that we are coming together on this occasion to talk about the important issue of implementation. And let me frame it a little bit. We are currently in a highly important year for the global biodiversity. It's yet another super year for nature. Last year was the super year for nature. This one is a super year for nature as well. The parties to the CBD are presently developing the Post-2020 Global Framework for adoption at the 15th Conference of the Parties, as we all know, I assume. To stop the loss of biodiversity, combat climate change, or adapt to its impacts, people need knowledge and capacities. At BMU, we strongly believe that what matters most about the GBF will be effective implementation, and that knowledge management and the facilitation of learning must be an integral part of this to successfully deliver on our objectives. The implementation of the new GBF needs to be fueled by concepts and ideas that have the potential for transformative change. It needs ideas that have proven to make a difference. It needs success stories and it needs solutions. PANORAMA is a fascinating platform and network that provides such solutions, addressing biodiversity conservation, climate change, and as well as many other challenges related to sustainable development. We as BMU, under the International Climate Initiative, ICI, have supported the development of the PANORAMA initiative, starting with funding the Blue Solutions project in 2013 and its pioneering work to establish a solution case study format and learning approach. This has been the nucleus of what is now PANORAMA. More ICI-funded projects have joined PANORAMA, bringing more themes and more partners to the partnership. We will learn a lot about PANORAMA today, also that there are 8 themes actually included, and I had the pleasure to launch the forest and landscape restoration theme just recently, which was a very great pleasure to me. So we see PANORAMA is growing in topics, in partners. That's great to see. I was very impressed to learn that by today, PANORAMA includes 899 solutions from 637 solution providers from 117 countries. These are really impressive numbers, and I congratulate PANORAMA on this. Well, PANORAMA is only possible through the network and the partners. And we also see an increasing number of organizations. I will not name them all because I risk forgetting one, but I'm sure that Helga or colleagues will show slides on informing you about the partners. Okay, I just had my daughter here. I'm sorry, that's real life. Yeah, in the context of the emerging GBF, I would like to emphasize the importance of committed partnerships like PANORAMA, as these can strongly contribute to implement the framework on the ground. So biodiversity conservation and ecosystem restoration are a joint endeavor that involves all of us. It can only succeed if we build on successful approaches and work together. So we as IUCN, CBD, GIZ, and other partners, we would like to encourage all of you to become part of PANORAMA as partners, solution providers, solution seekers, solution implementers, likers, upscalers, and individuals, which is most important. So with this, I leave it at the moment, and I thank again very much for inviting me and being part of this event. And I'm handing over to Trevor again. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elke. And you reminded us of so many fundamentals about what we're trying to do. One of the most important of which is that when we think about capacity development, and that's why we talk about capacity development, is that it's people that have the capacity, and it's people who can develop the knowledge and the know-how to do things and to progress with implementation. Often people think that we have to train people for them to have capacity, when indeed they have the capacity already. And what we need to do is to try and showcase what they're able to do and build a bigger understanding of that knowledge and capability around the world. So, and we're also very grateful to the government of Germany for its support in many ways through many projects that will help build this network. It's a very fundamental investment that I think will have huge returns into the future, not just numbers, but impact, as Iri said. So now I'd like to invite Helga Mahler, who is with our secretariat in PANORAMA, based at GIZ. Helga is going to give us some of the background as we were expecting. Helga?
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, everybody. I am very happy to be here today and to take you on a short 10-minute ride to show you what PANORAMA is about, to show you some insights of our daily work. So the PANORAMA partnership, what you, I think, already heard, it's all about promotion of solutions, of solution examples from the ground for topics of biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. We at PANORAMA believe that successful and sustainable implementation is built on inspiring examples of good practice. So it's all about our solutions. We are an initiative that facilitates solicitation of solutions, sharing and learning from practice. And we focus strongly on the idea of peer-to-peer knowledge sharing. And we document all this knowledge sharing and the reproducible approaches that we are collecting that way. We are backed by a strong alliance of partners that you can see here on the slide, from international environmental organizations and development organizations. And we are trying to institutionalize capacity development within our organizations, and also to bridge learning across the sectors. PANORAMA follows an integrated learning approach and knowledge exchange approach, knowledge exchange method, because we are combining the information sharing through our sophisticated online platform with face-to-face meeting, with contests and various other communication formats. And as you can see here, and we heard already also from Elke Steinmetz, that we are really a network of solution providers via NGOs, governmental organizations, academic organizations. We have more than 600 different solution providers who are working with us. And why are they sharing these solutions? Why the solution providers are sharing with us? They are gaining visibility through the PANORAMA platform. They are tapping into the partnership. It's also about self-reflection, self-learning in the moment that you are collecting your ideas to be able to transmit it to others. You think about it in a different way, and it gives you also ideas for your own self. And the solution seekers, they understand the trends, the inspiring stories, and they are supported in their daily decision-making with real-life examples they can choose from. So PANORAMA is all about capacity that is built, developed through and situated of learning from exchange from engaged stakeholders. It's all about that. We are documenting the solutions on PANORAMAs via a process which we are calling solutioning approach, because we have a modular approach to put solutions on the platform. You add it in building blocks in a modular format, and all these building blocks and the solution themselves are all replicable elements. And they all go through a quality check. They are peer-reviewed by subject matter experts before they are published. So solutions can be tools, method, practices, approaches, all that work that are scalable and replicable, and they inspire action, that already have an impact, they show impact. And I won't go to the numbers so much, because the most important numbers Elke Steinmetz said already, which I was very happy to hear, that they are known, to see how massive this information sharing is. And I will just like to also summarize one more time that PANORAMA, the platform itself, and also our partnership, not only the platform, the work within the partnership, as demonstrates in practice that capacity development begins at the implementation level in real situation. And we are supporting implementation through inclusive bottom-up learning and building the bridge between local implementation and also the global policy direction, which we are seeing also today. And PANORAMA also demonstrates the power of a strong, diverse, and flexible partnership and network. This is a short look into how we are built. We are a joint initiative of these members. The secretariat is shared by GIZ and IUCN. And actually, now I know I forgot to present myself. I am Helga Mahler from GIZ in the secretariat. Then we have some development partners as well. And our daily work is managed in thematic communities that are interlinked with each other, which all have their own administrators, and that they are coordinating the topic, not only the web platform, the portal, they are coordinating the topic generally, and they are led by different PANORAMA partners. So down here, you can see to each little box, to each thematic community, who are the coordinating partners. And you can see these details on the web platform. So I won't read them, because I would just like to go on and to show you a short video. And that video is all about our diversity. It's about voices from the field, and that summarizes our holistic approach, our tool for capacity development and knowledge management, peer-to-peer learning, and especially for the implementation of the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. So I will be grateful, Rashid, if you could start the video, and I thank you very much for now for listening, and then I will hand back to Trevor, and I'm happy for your questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Helga. We'll just wait for the screening of the video.
What if we could learn from each other's success, rather than reinventing the wheel again and again?
I find it very exciting that there's a trend of trying to find solutions and trying to sort of understand how these solutions have happened and how they can be replicable.
PANORAMA is a strong and growing partnership for learning and exchanging knowledge across geographic, sectoral and thematic boundaries. Practitioners working in nature conservation and development share successful approaches, projects and methods, or solutions. By breaking a solution down into its key components, or building blocks, PANORAMA contributors make their lessons learned accessible to others. Building blocks can be adapted, recombined, and reapplied by someone else, a solution seeker with a specific challenge, building on what's worked before. Solutions are used as real-life examples in trainings, and workshops and webinars bring people together to discuss, network, and learn. An online platform makes the solutions accessible to a global community. Take Nia, for example. She works for a small NGO, running a project to better involve communities in water management. Documenting her experience as a panorama solution allows Nia to reflect and better understand what worked and why. The exposure on Panorama gives visibility and recognition to her fantastic work beyond the local context in which it was applied.
We need to ignore national boundaries and make sure that knowledge of what works and why it works is shared everywhere around the world.
Now meet Bolin. He's an advisor to the Minister of Environment in his country. For him, the panorama is a useful source of information because it allows him to better understand trends in conservation and development. The solutions provide him with real-life examples to underpin policy recommendations.
We talk about the problems, we complain about the challenges, but there are solutions around the world, and we need to share those solutions a lot more proactively so that we can start to talk positively in conservation.
Sharing my solution here has been one of the best things that I could do.
Only if we learn from each other's success can we achieve better decision-making and greater impact for conservation and development. Let's focus on what works. Contribute now.
Great. Well, thank you, Helga, for that background. And I'm going to go straight on now then to let's get real and actually hear about some real experiences in the field. And it's with great pleasure that I invite friend and colleague Fernando Camacho from Mexico to take the lead and tell us about his experience in Panorama. Fernando.
Thank you very much, Trevor. I feel very honored to be here with a lot of colleagues and friends since a lot of years. So I am very happy to share our experience with Panorama. I'm going to start to share a presentation. Just give me a minute.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, my name is Fernando Camacho. I work in National Commission of Protected Areas of Mexico. And well, first of all, I have to say thanks to the invitation to the workshop and to share a little bit of what's been done in Mexico in Panorama in the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years. Well, first, as my colleagues before says, Panorama is a platform that is very useful for us because if you try to attendance the problem of climate change, well, you have to start working in the field, no? But not, as in the video says, we don't need to invent the wheel again and again and again. We need to start working to work in the field. And as you say, Trevor, the people have the knowledge. So a platform that can help to share the knowledge between people is very useful. So in Mexico, we use Panorama to do that. It's at the beginning to share with the world, and right now we are doing it to share inside of the institution. As I said, we are part of institution that work with 182 protected areas, and we have a magazine every week. So we use Panorama to encourage the people to share their experience every day. So as you can see, this is one of the emails that my colleagues receive every weekend, and they started to share their experience inside of Panorama. And right now we are very excited that for this new price that they are starting to apply. No, so this is one of the cases that we started to systematize through Panorama, and well, as you can see at the beginning, we started trying to share with the world, and I'm going to share, as you say, and one of the cases that can help to share to the people, to the colleagues that are right now in this workshop, how Panorama can help to the institution and to the people that are trying to implement it, solutions in the field. No, this is, by example, one solution that we started to implement it. And when I say we, it's my colleagues that are in the field. I work in central office, and they are the ones that do the job every day. And what they are doing is trying to work with their communities, trying to make a responsible fishing. No, it's not easy, and you need to work trying to encourage the participation, trying to encourage that everybody are working together. And these kinds of tools is very helpful, no, to share how in La Encrucijada, for example, do it. And after that, my colleagues in another part in Mexico, more in the north, can enter to Panorama and can see what the people of La Encrucijada do. No, by example, I like so much this one because it's involved 591 fishermen of 8 communities. No, so what we are trying to do is to share with you how Panorama can help to share information about the implementation of in the field. No, something that we want to share is, without people interest, you won't get anywhere. No, this is one of the first the things that my colleagues trying to share from another protected areas, and that's why we are trying to put it here, something of the results that we want to share. No, increasing community self-organization, by example, no, is something if you can enter, you can see how they trying to encourage this self-organization, community self-organization. No, so and another thing, by example, create an adapted capacity. You said it before. No, we need to create capabilities in our people. So this solution trying to do that, and we use Panorama to systematize and to share it with the world. So this is how we are using Panorama. And right now, as I said, I think that we encourage to my colleagues to do it again and again. And I don't know, I couldn't have the opportunity to see how much solution are right now in the platform, but I guess there are a few ones, so we can feel very proud of that. So I guess that this is the last one. Let me see. Yeah, and thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much, Fernando. And in case you missed it, it's great that CONAMP and your agency has been contributing solutions to the platform, which is useful for your own sharing. But now there are nearly 900 solutions on the platform. So one can search and say, where are fishing communities getting this right? And we can look at all those lessons and try and figure out what are the common building blocks and what works and what we should do if we're trying to solve that problem somewhere else. So that's great. So if anyone has a question, please put it in the Q&A box. Either Fernando can answer you directly because he knows the answer, or we can raise it later on for discussion. And now it's my great pleasure to jump across the world, and that's what this whole platform is all about, to Madagascar, and invite Julian Rakotu-Aresu, who is the Director General of the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development in Madagascar, to share a story from that part of the world. Julian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Trevor, and Manaona. It means good morning, good afternoon, everything you want. It's more easy with Malagasy language. So I will try to share my screen. So as Trevor said, so I'm working at the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development in Madagascar. I'm also the national focal point of FLR and IF100. That's why I am using the Panorama solutions as solution providers and working on the topic on ecosystem restoration. The fact is that Madagascar have trying to learn about Panorama solution by doing activities through the AFLR process. So I've been working on AFLR since 2015, and several major challenges were identified early in the process. First, to the restoration commitment declared by Madagascar. By working along the process, we identified some building blocks to be considered if we want to reach our commitment to restore 4 million hectares of forest and land degraded. The first things that we are trying to work on is about creating a coordination structures. So it was one block on coordination structures. And the second one during the process is about the capacity building, on which we have also tried to share the PANORAMA solution with other stakeholders and partners for this approach. The third one during the process about the development of the national strategy. So it's a main framework document, which is this national strategy on AFLR. And the last one is a things which is a tool, a special technical tool materialized by the national guideline for the prioritization of landscape to be restored. It means about the 4 millions. So working closely with the GIZ project on restoration, I was able to learn about the PANORAMA solutions from this GIZ project colleague who work on the topic from international commitments to local implementation. So we are using the PANORAMA solution as an approach for the AFLR. And during the step when we started to work on our AFLR national strategy, we identified 4 major challenges as we see on this slide. The concept of PANORAMA solutions was used and voluntary to find key elements to address to these challenges. And we found that some building blocks were already there through the process we adopted. And we had just add some other block using the analysis of these challenges. As a national focal point on AFLR and AFR 100, I learned how to use the PANORAMA solutions by the implementation of this national AFLR strategy. The design of the solution was inspired by the achievement of Madagascar in its progress in the process, particularly around the theme of governance. Indeed, Madagascar is among the first countries to have put in place the institutional governance structure at the national level. Through other main tools have been developed, constituting the other element of the block. In 2018, 4 building blocks were established to guide Madagascar to achieve the national commitment on landscape and forest restoration. The creation of the National AFLR Committee as an institutional structures represents the first block, BB1 in these figures, within which coordination as well as facilitation of multi-stakeholders dialogue helped us to translate the country's commitment into policy and planning tools. With the second block, BB2, materialized by the capacity building program along the process, we were able to establish a third block, BB3, which is a reference framework document, the National AFLR Strategy. And from this third block, and still in relation to the achievement of the restoration objective, a fourth block, BB4, in terms of identification and prioritization of landscape to be restored was put in place. I just need to precise, but by using the second block on capacity building, we have already tried to share PANORAMA solution to the other actors and partners during the exercise that we have done always on these topics of forest landscape restorations. For example, during the phase that we are working on the bond challenge barometer. So we have already tried to put some building block to work on that. And there is an evolution on the building block. So as the FLR process progress over the time, the building block also evolve. For example, the establishment of a model restoration project by eco-region is a new block that leads to the scaling up of restoration activities towards the achievement of the country's FLR commitment. So we can see the evolution of the structure, so it's very useful and flexible. It depends on the process, where we are on the process. And to finalize, I want to try to share with you some analysis of the PANORAMA solution for our case. So PANORAMA is a solution research using a holistic approach. So its utilization is recommended to put together the condition, I mean the favorable conditions that ensure the achievement of the objectives linked to the challenge. In relation to my current position, the PANORAMA solution has been very inspiring to me, as the concept of building blocks is very useful in guiding thinking to address natural resource management complex issues in general. And it means that also the topics on the Global Biodiversity Framework must be within this question of resource management. And the added value of PANORAMA, therefore, lies in the conduct of a design approach that reconciles the consideration of several interdependent or complementary elements toward the resolution of a problem related to these complex challenges. On this, thank you, and Trevor, floor is yours again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian, for a very thoughtful presentation of your particular situation. And we're starting to see comments, and we're starting to see points of questioning coming up in the chat, which we'll return to in a little bit. I do see Maurizio Solano on line. Maurizio, do you want to join us and make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Trevor. I'd like to briefly share experience we've been working with. I'm a technical advisor for GIZ based in Costa Rica, and we recently supported the government of Honduras, Dominican Republic, and Costa Rica in submitting a proposal to the BioBridge initiative from CBD. And this project is, well, it's right now selected under the BioBridge initiative, and it's funded by the German Ministry for the Environment, the BMU. And it has two different goals. The first one is the exchange of information between the regional countries in the economic valuation of ecosystem services. And the second one is to construct a guide, a regional guide on this topic also. So we've been using PANORAMA as we are right now solution seekers, and we are getting the information and experiences PANORAMA shows in order to achieve what we have, what we want to get on this project. So I think this is a good example how a CBD initiative under the BioBridge initiative is linked to PANORAMA solutions. And the solutions we can find not only show the methodology of how things can or should be done, but also the challenges that were faced and how they did overcome those challenges and the lessons and you can also find the contacts there, so you can get a link and you can go even furthermore. So briefly, that's our experiences, and please feel free to contact me if you have any other questions.
Now that's a very interesting experience, and I was having a similar experience recently. It was a bit of it put a smile on my face actually, because I was asked a complicated question in China about how you could make sure that communities that need resources and for their own livelihoods are compatible with conservation goals. And someone from China in that meeting said to me, "You need to go and have a look at this PANORAMA platform. There's lots and lots of examples out there." So I thought, great, we often forget to look at the thing that we're busy actually constructing. But I wanted to come back to the panel, and maybe I could ask the panelists to put on their cameras so everyone can see you all together again. And Mauricio, stay with us if you like. So we have, and Fernando. So I wanted to go back and we have a little segment now where we can perhaps just come to the panel and consider a few issues. So I wanted to start again with you, Eri, and just, I know you've been involved in the most detailed work in the recent SBI meeting in the convention, but behind that is a lot more work and speciality in knowledge management and capacity development, the consultation that you ran globally. When you listen to these case studies and you hear about the platform, what jumps out for you as being significant that you think really contributes to what you're trying to do and at the CBD?
Thank you, Trevor. Well, one of the things that sticks out is sometimes how much is actually already ongoing that we don't know about. And there's a lot of that. And it's a challenge of being able to connect people who are seeking information and those that that have some of the information and the solutions for that matter. So I think it has been obvious from the research that we've done as we are trying to put together these documents that now the SBI has been considering, how much that networking and linking different stakeholders is key in finding ways of doing things better. It's not like, and that's why the issue of, for example, how the discussion was on the issue of capacity building versus capacity development, and how we've been, at least from the documents we prepared, we encouraged moving to using the terminology capacity development. I know some might say, oh, these are semantics, but they are not. It's about acknowledging the fact that there's a lot that's already existing, but we just need to build on it. And that acknowledgement itself is very important. So it's not really about semantics, it's really about knowing that we have a lot. So I think to answer your question again is, there's already a lot that's going. We need to be building on that, not reinventing the wheel, and learning from the mistakes of others. Some of them are not necessarily just solutions. Even failure is a lesson and could be a solution for somebody else. So I think what PANORAMA is doing is really critical, and we need to expand that and scale it up so that other players that might be having these solutions can come up and share these solutions.
Great. Thanks, Eri. I might come back to you later on and just see what do you think we should do as a partnership to try and scale up through the CBD process. So you have a think about that. And Elke, you mentioned the very willing support of the German government across a range of investments into PANORAMA. And I do remember when we were having bilateral discussions years and years ago, one of the things was that we do a lot of investment in biodiversity conservation through many, many bilateral and multilateral instruments. but we don't always really benefit. I mean, there's a beneficiary on site, but we don't always benefit by capturing the lessons learned and moving it forward. So I wanted you to perhaps offer some thoughts about how you think PANORAMA can somehow address that gap. You know, how PANORAMA can be developed further. How can we amplify the sharing of lessons that, like we've heard today, from your point of view?
Thank you very much, Trevor. I'm just checking sound and video because I had to change my device, but it's fine. Okay.
It's fine. You just narrow.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, sorry, I had to use my mobile phone now. Thank you for the question. Yes, I think the unique thing about PANORAMA is the link between the local implementation and the global policy. This is the unique thing about PANORAMA, which is really an asset and which makes it even so successful. I just would like to give you a comparison. I've been very much involved in the G7 discussions and now in the G20 discussions. And there are also a lot of ambitious commitments coming up through these platforms, but there's no idea on implementation. So I'm just mentioning that because I see that there is a growing willingness also all over the world to really tackle those big challenges that we have ahead, but there's no idea on how the implementation could be scaled up, how knowledge can be brought to or exchanged between actors and so on. So this is, I think, definitely the unique thing about PANORAMA, and which makes it so valuable. Well, you were asking about an advice or an idea on how to further develop it. I have a whole list in my head with ideas, but I do not want to go into details too much. But I think what is important is, and that was also shown through the two very impressive presentations from Fernando and from Julien, is that the solutions are not only in the biodiversity community, but in the broader family. And I think this is very important that PANORAMA, it's on that way, definitely, but I think it still can improve in opening up its scope a little bit outside of the biodiversity family, as Julien showed with a forest landscape approach, for example. And I think this is really important to really make a difference and really scale up implementation. So this is just one thought that I would like to share at this point of discussion. Thank you.
No, thanks for that thought. I think it's an interesting thing that PANORAMA has grown, and as new sectoral themes have been added, so the possibility of exchanging across sectors becomes apparent. So, you know, we heard from Julien about the institutional cooperative mechanisms that were needed for forest landscape restoration. But we also heard from Fernando that at the local level, fishers and fishing communities also needed governance and institutional cooperation. So I want to go back to you, Fernando, briefly, and just ask about, you know, it is quite, maybe it's quite laborious and it's quite deliberate to actually go and deconstruct something that you've been doing and put it down in this way, in a building block format and in a way that can be maybe recombined and used in a different way to develop new projects. But what, you know, as a director general in a big nature conservation agency, what do you think? What are the features of this approach that for you are valuable as a manager that would help you with your work or would help similar institutions with their work?
Well, first of all, I have to say that, as my colleague says before, we are in a tremendous problem in terms of biodiversity and climate change. And we need to identify solutions at a global level, but at a local level too, no? And as Elke says, it's a little difficult to identify the links between this national and global discussion and how to implement it, no? And when I've been part of this IKI global project, mainstreaming of ecosystem-based adaptation, that was the project that present me the panorama. The first thing that I thought was, okay, right now we are talking about NDCs and we're talking about how to implement the Paris Agreement, but we need to start systematize to put this information at the local level and try to share it, no? As Eri says, well, we are now building this post-2020 framework, and I think that Panorama is very useful as a tool to share information between all the parties that are part of the CDB, and they're trying to know how to not start again and again, no, to trying to discover the wheel every time that you have a project or you have a new idea. All this, the time that you invest in the beginning, you can go to Panorama and you can see how to start it. And these building blocks are very helpful for that, no? And another thing that is very useful is that you can actualize, I don't know if it's a word in English, but you can go in to the platform and put the new information and again, and that helps you so much to put what the new thing that you are you want to share, no? So for me, in my position, that sometimes I've been part of the SBI or the SOFTA discussions, and I can work with my colleagues that work in the field. Plus, Panorama is a very useful tool because you can use at the national level and as a local level. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, your answer is what you would like to say. I wanted to challenge you because you said something about, you know, how one can pick up a solution from somewhere else and apply it in another place. So when you listen to Julian's solution about forest landscape restoration in Madagascar, what jumped out for you that you could immediately say, hang on, we've done a similar thing in Chiapas, or we've done a similar thing, this is exactly what we're looking for and we could apply it in Mexico. What would it take to make that exchange happen?
First of all, I have to say that we need to systematize what we are doing as ULAN do, because we're working with the Forestry Commission, by example, and we are working so much in trying to restore the forestry inside and outside of protected areas. So maybe we can follow the steps of Madagascar, going to Panorama and trying to do the same, to systematize and share the experience of Mexico. First is the first thing that I think, that I thought. And the other one is to share with my colleagues of the National Commission of Forestry to see what my colleagues of Madagascar are doing right now. So exactly, we have to do it, use Panorama in that sense and share it with my other sectors.
Yes, that's great. As you were talking, I was just thinking about a project that was done on the coastal watersheds of Mexico that was also looking at integrated land use management to solve both biodiversity and sustainable livelihood problems. And we just need this richness and this exchange. And I'm hoping this is what can happen. So Julian, when you were definitely spoke with an enthusiasm about Panorama, but I wanted to know what did you really like about it? What really made you sit up and say, hang on, this is interesting? What features about Panorama were interesting to you?
Yes, thank you, Trevor. In fact, I want to say again that Panorama solution is really a holistic approach to solve complex challenges. And for example, when we talk about biodiversity management, biodiversity will be well managed when we try to manage the landscape. So that's why holistic, it means that we need to use blocks to solve the problem in a globality first, and we can work on the, as you said, we can work from the commitment to the local implementation. And it's work also for biodiversity. We work for the landscape in totally, and then we can see how to manage the biodiversity. Also, I can say that PANORAMA solution is a very flexible method. That's why it's very easy to use it. And simply it means that PANORAMA solutions was, is, and will be an important tools to be used and shared to all actors working on this global problematic of ecosystem restoration in the world. And last but not least, that most of the time we are already using this approach before, but we don't know what is it. But after learning about PANORAMA, I said, so what we have done is already a PANORAMA solution approach. That's why it's also a question of auto capacity building. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Julian. There are lots of questions that we want to ask, but I might just go to the whole panel and ask a question that's come up in the chat. I need some solutions for how to moderate sessions online here. But one of the questions was about, it was from Laurel McIver, and questioning why we talk about solutions when actually this is all about problems, and suggesting that why don't we focus at the hard part of this question about if something goes wrong, if something doesn't work, if something fails, and try and understand why it didn't work, as opposed to what is suggested is easier to look at what does work. And I'd just be interested in any reflections of the panel on this terminology issue, because ultimately maybe we are talking about the same thing. Anyone like to offer any responses to that? Problem solving versus solution seeking. Eric?
I can come in fast, and building on what I said earlier, I think you can't separate the two for me. It's one is to the other. Sometimes the problems that we have, one part of the universe has, is perhaps the solution could be a lesson and the solution to the other. So I think we need to look at all this as part of the same equation, and not dwell so much on the problem side. And let's look for solutions. Let's be positive in our perspective, in our approach. Yes, problems are there, but they also become lessons of ways of learning and doing things better. So personally, I'm an optimistic person. I always want to put a positive spin on any problem that comes my way. Of course, not everybody sees that, but yeah, I think it could be a good way of looking at issues and trying to find solutions to those issues.
How do others respond to that diversity or the dichotomy? Elke?
I very much like your optimism, Eri. That's a good approach always. But I also like the question that came from the panel, because I think it's a very good question. And to my mind, it's connected to the complexity of solutions. I think it's important that the solution is presented in a way which is very transparent, easy to understand, not too complex. And sometimes it's easier to explain a solution coming from a lessons learned by a failure than by a success. So this is coming to my mind. So I think it's a good approach to have both approaches in mind. Thank you.
I don't know if there's anyone else would like to respond on this topic.
Trevor, maybe I'd like to say that I like in terms of semantic and words, maybe overcoming challenges sounds better than getting into problems and building over something already done.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, please chip in if you like it. I've tried to think about this a lot because I think I'm a little bit more like Erie in that I think of as the challenge as an inspiration to find the solution, if you like. And when you do find a solution, well, it's so exciting. You want to tell people about it. Whereas it's quite easy psychologically to find problems and dwell on them and then not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel because you just get deeper and deeper into the vortex of the problem. But I'm interested in this debate because what does learning theory have for this? Do we respond? Are we more motivated by successes or the sense of a solution than we are about the depth of the problem that we solved? I just think there might be a dichotomy in the way our brains work. And why would somebody pick up a solution? I think that's the people element of PANORAMA, that if I can be inspiring to you, you're much more likely to be interested in what I've got to say than if than if I have a problem. I'm not saying that either is wrong, because every solution was overcoming a problem, but it gives you a little bit of light if you can focus on the thing that worked. Any other comments on this topic from the panel?
Well, I can say that in a lot of the solutions that are from Mexico, there are a description of the problem, no? And after that, we put a lot of attention on how we solve that. But probably, as you said, it would be an opportunity to say, okay, if you want to share the failures or something that you do wrong and you would like to share, that you can find a space in the platform, that would be nice, no? Probably the people can be a little bit confused because it's solutions, but as Mauricio says, you can find a place. But and of course there is very rich to share when something that you do wrong, no? Especially in the projects that you have so very short time to implement a project, and you have the donor and you have everybody. So if you share something that you do wrong in the past, that would be very helpful.
Yeah. So and Julian, how's your work? Maybe you can also touch on this issue. I mean, you're with the government, and can others also develop solutions? Can non-governmental organizations develop solutions? Can combinations of organizations develop solutions? What is your feeling about this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Trevor. In fact, I can say that already when you are using PANORAMA solutions, when you try to find which will be the building block, it means that you need first to understand the component of the problem. And after that, you need to think on the solution in a positive way of thinking. For example, we don't never say it's problem, but just a challenge. And by using this component, when we share the solution of the reflection with the other partners, so we can improve this building block in the PANORAMA solution. So it's very useful to share what we propose in terms of building block with the other actors, because there is a different view of point from the government, from the NGO, and from other peoples. And in this way, we can have some, solution by the right building block that we need to think about when we address a solution to a complex problem. Yeah,
thanks, Johan. And Helga, did you have any thoughts about this? I know when you gave your presentation, you're definitely bought into and sold on the idea, but what critical reflections would you have on whether we should be focusing on, you know, figuring out the right answer to a problem or actually grabbing hold of a solution and running with it?
Mm-hmm. I also second all the positive approaches on seeing to solve a problem, to solve something. We definitely reflect on the platform, as many of you said already, also on the challenges. We can even sort the solutions based on the challenges we are approaching. But we are not presenting failures also because of the like clear failures. As I understand now, the question is that a project started and it completely failed, and how to learn out of it. Because we also have this process of quality management for the solutions by experts, and a solution which has an impact can be checked upon, can be seen and learned from. A failure is very wide defined. So we will need to focus it in some way, which kind of failures it's possible to learn from and which not. So these questions are all the time on our mind to see how, because we are developing the platform further continuously. So we are very open for this discussion. And what you just said, Trevor, I think it's very interesting also to look into that. What is neuroscience saying about that? How do we learn from failures and how do we learn from solutions? And to see how we can channel that also in the platform in the future. Yeah.
Okay. No, thanks everybody for those remarks. I'm probably missing some chat, but I'm kind of wanting to go to a slightly different topic. It's okay. We've had this variety of views. We can see many different stakeholders involved in constructing solutions and bringing them to PANORAMA. But we've done it we've seeded this, we've catalyzed this through projects, we've really tried to, we are learning in this process about what are the solutions to managing knowledge. You know, it's another metadata field. And as we now have 900 solutions, we should be able to analyze many trends within that body of work to see what works, what are the most frequent building blocks, why is there a cause and effect relationship, and so on. But the other thing that that I'll go and look at the messages Maria's sending me on the side, that we also have to think about how we take this partnership further and how we build this technology, if you like. It's a technology of people in places, addressing problems, finding answers, sharing that knowledge, learning. And ultimately, if that long-term strategic plan for capacity development is going to work, it's going to require lots more of this to happen out there to make it work. And so the question I want to put to the panel is, how can we scale this up? What do we need to do to grow this enterprise of PANORAMA, to grow the partnership, to grow the body of solutions? And I think almost more importantly, to grow our understanding of how to learn from practice. This is not about everyone being an expert and teaching and educating. This is about how we really truly learn from experience and make that learning available in a way that is acceptable to others. Because we can also make information available in a way that I reject it. I say, sorry, well, you just happen to be from a rich, developed country. Why should I be interested in your answer? Or the opposite, you know, you come from a poor and developing country. What do you know about answers to these complex problems? And here we have a more democratic and egalitarian system that says anyone can learn about anything from anybody. So how do we grow that? How do we make this more of a reality? And I'll throw the challenge out to the panel. Maybe I'll start with you again, Eri, because you're the one who's grappling with it. And I'll go and look at the messages and see if I can direct them.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's a challenge that we need to face. As we said, we learn from challenges. The challenges become solutions. But I think the culture of being able to document our lessons and sharing them is something that we need to keep emphasizing. I think as we've learned from experience, and as I'm sure you've learned through the panorama, there's a lot that goes on, but it's not documented and shared. It's like you have to go an extra mile to encourage people to do exactly that. If we develop this culture of being able to share our experiences, our lessons, and maybe providing means of how that can be done in an easy way, I think that would take us a step further. But start first and foremost, being able to build that culture of sharing. It's still lacking, I have to admit, because even the work that we've been trying to do at the CBD Secretariat, trying to capture all these lessons, case studies of lessons, it's a struggle. and we know they are there. And I'm sure you've gone through this experience as you try to seek these, get these solution providers to share their experiences. But we need to widen the tent. We need to get more players to be willingly sharing what they have more broadly.
Thank you, and maybe I'll go also to Elke. I mean, when you think about, given the extensive support that Germany, through many avenues, through investment in grant programs, in support like through GIZ and so on, offers the world in biodiversity. We're so happy to have you as a partner and to be engaged in this process of thinking through this and trying to develop it. What do you think is the way to, where should we be in 10 years' time if we're getting this right? What do we need to do to get there?
That's a very big question, but first of all, I think you should continue. This is the most important thing. Continue on that path. I think this is the right path, and that's what we need. I think partnership lives from individuals and from connecting each other. So I think the spirit is there. And it can always, or it's always the core, the nucleus of learning from each other. I think it would be really important also to look at other platforms, to get connected to them, both existing and emerging ones, because there's no intention to reinvent the wheel. Others have other good ideas, so I think that would be very good to have some outreach to other platforms. I also mentioned before that I think it's important to reach out a little bit outside of the community, to get some more ideas from there. One thing that I personally think is really important is to be even more attractive for youth. It's a totally different topic, but I think, I mean, we are talking about a global framework that will long until 2050, and there will be important steps to make until 2030. And it's our younger generation that will have to build on what we decide now. And I think it would be an asset if Panorama really would open more for young people and their ideas on solutions. So that would also be an idea. And I was thrown out of the connection in between, so I'm not sure whether Helga already talked about the monitoring framework that you intend to develop within Panorama. I think this is also a very important point. In all situations, we're now talking a lot about monitoring, but I think it's an important tool to prove success and to demonstrate impact. So I think this is also a very important next step to work on this monitoring framework. Yeah, and then stay positive, stay optimistic. That's all.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, no, thanks for those thoughts. I do think in a way, we are trying to live, the word is, we walk the talk, so we not only have to try and enable a platform for learning, but we also have to learn about how to do that. And that means looking out of the corner of your eye at something somebody else is doing. And there's that question of what makes somebody else's solution acceptable to you. And there's the psychology of comparison and the psychology of imitation. And there's all sorts of issues that we don't yet understand theoretically about how learning takes place, how adults learn, or how children even learn. So maybe I'll give one last word to Fernando and to Julien, just to say what would it take to develop this further in your country. So I'll start with Fernando.
Yes, I was thinking in your last question about how can we encourage the use of this platform, another one of sharing experience, and probably if we can incorporate in the institutional process that the people first to start every new project or every new activity, going first to looking for experience in this kind of platform, that would be great, no? Because I think that right now we are trying to encourage that the people share experience, but we need to encourage the people to look for experience too, and that is something that, by example, I saw one of my colleagues here making some comments, and she is one of the experts trying to build institutional platforms to share information, and by example, if we can put in these kind of platforms that first before start with everything, trying going first to this Panorama or another one and looking for experience, that would be great, no? And by example, GEF could do it, or another kind of big donors can put it in their process to looking for experience before start the projects.
Thanks, Fernando. There's definitely another option is to look at the units that deal with monitoring, evaluation, and learning across institutions, and try and bring them into the partnership as part of the engineering side, as well as the work that we do at the level of local participants. And Julien, what do you need in Madagascar to scale up, to make this a reality more broadly?
Yes, I think that for Madagascar, what we need is some support just to help us to establish some formal platform for sharing this kind of experience in terms of finding solutions. Right now, we have the national committees of AFARAR. So it's a real opportunity to have these structures, because we can find there's ministerial department and also civil society, NGO, private sectors. So in which we can really share quickly the concept of Panorama solutions, because just to share with you that within these structures, we are working on 3 major topics. One is about land management, second one is about water management, and last but not least is biodiversity. So in this topic, we can just put together our experiences. Maybe we can start with the assessment of failures also with these topics, and to see which is the good experiences to put on this kind of box solutions within this. And we just need have some support to establish this kind of how to formate this platform to more easy to use for every actors which is already involved in these national structures. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Julien. And as I'm sort of pushing towards the closing of the seminar, that idea is also so interesting, to seed and catalyze, if you like, sub-networks of PANORAMA dealing with issues, for example, in different languages and in a different cluster of topics. So that's another dissemination strategy, is to make it very accessible, but also to have it curated and managed with the local interests. So we've come to the end of our time, and to pass my test as a good moderator, I need to end on time. So I'd like to thank everybody who has helped prepare this webinar today, especially you, Eri, and the CBD Secretary, who's kept encouraging us to do this, and of course, Elke, you, and the German government, who are so much involved, our Helga for being part of the organization, as well as the others behind the scenes organizing, and Julian and Fernando and Mauricio for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. One little notification is that there are upcoming events, and I'm going to ask Richard to just project the slide just to mention that there are events coming up with PANORAMA. There are new publications, there are new webinars, there are new thematic communities being launched. And one big plug is that we will be running a Pathfinder Award leading up to the COP15, and all the information is available on the panorama.solutions website. This is a way of going out there, and going back to your point, Elke, we often have youth competitors. It's worth a lot of money, and we get lots and lots of interest coming out. So please join our virtual PANORAMA session at the World Conservation Congress in September. Look out for the launch of the Species Conservation and Health thematic communities, and participate in the Pathfinder Award. And since it's still 16:30, I'd like to thank all of you for your participation today and for joining us. And I wish you a good rest of the day, rest of the evening, and see you soon with lots of solutions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you.
Gracias, hasta luego.
Thank you very much.
Hasta luego.